$100,000 a year passive income towards real estate investing. So what I like to do is I like to share different strategies. Every people can get a general idea, and then you have to decide for yourself specifically where how you want to apply it to yourself and what your situation is financially and how you want to grow it in a way that you don't hurt yourself financially, right? You want to start, sustain, and stabilize, but not hurting yourself in a way. So I like to share different strategies on how to get to $100,000 a year passive income, because people are at a different comfort level financially, emotionally. This I've been trying to learn how to tweak, because I blurted out to an attorney the other day. I have an attorney friend who's thinking about investing, but they're like, yeah, Terry, I'm just not there emotionally. And I said, yeah, you got to learn how to have emotional intelligence. But I was like, oh, that was a little bit, I feel like I kind of blurted that out wrongly. So I want to see if I can practice here how to say that differently. But the truth is, we can only have a certain level of emotional balance or intelligence when it comes to investing money or making money grow based on what we've experienced. Okay. So, for example, I just closed on a house with a young couple, and they were coming out of pocket. They were supposed to come out of pocket $12,000. They actually only came out of pocket $6,000, and they ended up getting money back at the closing table, but they were prepared to come out $12,000, right? So each of them, this young couple was engaged. So each of them have been growing their own bank account for the purpose of investing. They both know that they're both under 25. They're both under 23, actually. They both know they want to get into investing. So they both knew they wanted to get into a house. So they've been like, separately, because they're not married yet. And so, but an opportunity presented itself where they could buy a house together, which I normally don't advise if you actually haven't walked down the aisle yet. But like I said, that's for each person to decide for themselves. Because I mean, I guess you could still look at it as a partnership, and if things go wrong, you sell the house, right? Or I don't know, you stay friends and you keep a good partnership. But anyway, so when they had to cut the check for closing, they called me on the phone, and I could sense this emotional anxiety, right? And after being on the phone with them for a couple minutes, I realized, oh, there's this emotional anxiety, and what they're doing is there's this emotional anxiety, and they're like really feeling like the responsibility and the weight, not of buying the house, but the weight of growing their bank account. And now they're taking that money and they're cutting a certified check to somebody else, and their bank account is going to go down. That's a real, when you experience that, it doesn't matter if you're 20, it doesn't matter if you're 35, it doesn't matter if you're 50. It doesn't matter if the first time you experience it is you're 57, right? So I like to share that emotional part of it has to do with experience, not your age. And so it was good for me to have that experience with them, because I realized it was the same for my clients who were 50, who bought their first investment property. Maybe they bought their first house, but now your first investment property is 20% down. So you've built your bank account to the point where now you're pulling out $65,000, right? And you're wiring funds to the attorney's office for $65,000. And now you've got this like, ooh, that's emotional. Okay. And that's why I tell people, so to buy your first home, or to buy, if you're renting, you're taking money and you're putting it towards renting, you can position yourself to buy your first home. If you've bought your first home, you can position yourself to buy your first investment property. If you've bought your first investment property, you can buy a second one. Then you can buy a third one. By the fourth one, so by the first one, it's really, really hard. The first one is the hardest. The second one is still hard. The third one doesn't feel as hard. The fourth one, I've usually got to slow people down and go, hey, let's slow down here, okay? Because we want to keep stabilizing, not just not just scaling, right? So people talk about scaling their business, really, and what you should say is scaling financially is really the term I like to use. I don't really hear anybody using, but I'd prefer to say scaling financially. But you want to make sure while you're, here's the term again, while you're scaling financially, you're staying stable financially, and you're still able to sustain your financial responsibilities, right? Did I say that good? So you have to have this emotional intelligence when it comes to investing. And that's why I like to share different strategies. So the one strategy I like to talk about is having 10 and then doing a cash out refi every year for 10, right? The other one that I like to share is where you buy maybe 5. And then when the market is good, right now the market is really, really good, you sell off 2 to pay off 3, right? Or you buy 5 and you sell off 1 to put more down on the 4th. The reason that you would do that is if you only want 4, okay? You wouldn't necessarily do that if you want to build to 10, or you might do it if you want to stabilize and you feel like it's getting a little bit ahead of you and you want to balance a little bit, and you would rather owe the bank be more ownership than the bank is ownership. Because remember, like I like to say, there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about the slave as borrower to the lender. And I like to say that you are not a slave to the bank, you're partners with the bank. The tenant is the one who is borrowing the home, okay? But you own the home with the bank. So you're partners with the bank. So maybe you might want to buy 5 and sell 1 off so you can pay down on some of them because you want to just feel a little bit better emotionally. So those are different reasons why you would want to do that. People who are building, to a lot of properties, or they want to get to 10, they might not want to do that. So there's a lot of reasons why you would want to buy and then sell, but also understand your tax consequence behind that. So in this